Now let's get to this. So this is breaking news, exclusive news out of Reuters. Okay, recently, I just have to comment before I get to this. Recently, we've been hearing a lot of bad news from a lot of media outlets. Okay, just yesterday, on the front page of CNBC, they talked about the shady history of Chris, the founder behind Crypto.com. And now we have Reuters putting this on their front page as well, that the U.S. Justice Department is split overcharging Binance as the crypto world falters, right? There does seem to be some kind of coordinated attack on Bitcoin and crypto right now, okay? Does seem like after the FTX fallout, everyone is trying to get in and trying to stomp the entire industry. And actually, one person has a really good theory about this I'll get to in a little bit. But what is this about? Well, supposedly, the U.S. Justice Department has been looking into Binance since 2018. This is not recent. They've been looking into Binance since 2018, basically looking at their anti-money laundering laws and also their KYC requirements, and they don't like what they're seeing. Now, in 2018, when Binance is still relatively new, relatively young, they didn't really have a lot of these protocols in place. But obviously, over the last few years, Binance has been getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But this is talking about how they started that investigation. And, in 2019, 2020, right, they were asked for a lot of documents, had trouble producing them, supposedly. This is all according to sources, okay, that Reuters somehow has. Who are these sources inside the Justice Department? We don't know. Could be completely fabricated, right? But supposedly these sources said that Binance couldn't produce a lot of these documents, had a lot of problems, right? Also problems in the U.S., which is why they formed Binance.us and so forth, and continues on and makes it seem like Binance really, they don't know what they're doing, right? And also, they also helped a lot of bad people escape sanction laws and process crypto transactions from people that shouldn't be able to do it. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff, accusations thrown out at Binance, according to Reuters and according to these sources that I'm putting in air quotes, okay? Because we have no idea who they are, right? So that's the thing. Now, the latest is a couple things. Either the Justice Department is going to charge Binance for money laundering, or they're going to settle with them. CoinDesk said that, hey, they actually may settle, some kind of fine or something, right? So it's one of the two. Most likely it's going to be settled if they do have enough evidence. But, of course, this is still pending. We don't know if this is actually going to happen. Okay. And again, this is all really speculation in terms of what the sources are saying, supposedly. So I do think right now there's a coordinated attack on Bitcoin and crypto as a whole. There's definitely some kind of attack ever since FTX, right? Maybe it shook up a few people. Maybe it exposed some people, right? So now there seems like there's a deflection going on, right? The people that were exposed or weakened, they're trying to point fingers elsewhere to kind of deflect on their involvement. So I like to remind you guys a couple things about banks. But no, before I get to that, I want to show you. Binance did respond to this. They had their top guy kind of write a whole blog about this, right? Saying how since the beginning, they have responded to 47,000 law enforcement requests. They have increased the security and compliance headcount by more than 500%, participated in 70 anti-cybercrime workshops, and became the first blockchain crypto company to join National Cyber Forensic and Training Alliance. And they respond to everything very quickly. They have complied with every single jurisdiction, right? So they are basically saying, this is just a giant FUD piece against Binance, right? And remember that person I said has some interesting thoughts about this, Max Keller. Max Keller, one of the big Bitcoin bulls out there, right? Look at what he said. Just like the U.S. attacked Iraq after Saudis did in 9/11 to deflect and look like they're doing something, the U.S. will attack Binance after the reveal that SBF and FTX, through several elections, stole $8 billion and corrupted scores of U.S. politicians and VCs. Right? Deflection? That makes sense. That makes a whole lot of sense, right? To try to attack Binance, trying to deflect what's really happening with FTX and SBF. Interesting thought. Now, here's also interesting thought for you guys, okay? Did you know that the largest banks that we have today, the largest banks that you depend on, have also been laundering money? In fact, they have been laundering money for so long that people don't even pay attention to the headlines anymore because it seems to be a common occurrence for them. So if you thought that the U.S. Justice Department charging companies for money laundering was serious, well, if you're a bank, it's more like a slap on the wrist fine. So I decided to do some research because I have looked at some of these headlines before. Here's one that just talks about 2020. Take a look at all the banks that were slapped with several hundred million to billions in fines due to money laundering. Goldman Sachs, almost $4 billion. Wells Fargo, almost $3 billion. Chase, almost $1 billion. And you got Westpac and all these other banks, some not even in the U.S., slapped with billions of fines. This is a common occurrence, right? So this attack on crypto makes it seem like it's so bad, right? And first of all, this whole slap on Binance, that's still speculated. That hasn't happened yet. But just to give you guys a reminder that the banks, the largest banks on earth, has been doing this for decades. And not only with money laundering, but with much worse things too. And they don't get shut down. They get a slap. That's it. Okay? JP Morgan fined $2 billion. This is back in 2014 when Bernie Madoff, the whole Ponzi collapsed, right? All the stuff that they ignored, somehow it's okay. They got fined $2 billion. Here's one. Bank of America ordered to pay $17 billion. Again, due to a lot of the shenanigans that happened in the last housing bubble with the mortgage-backed securities and all the risky things that they did, right? Yeah, it's okay. It's okay if you break the law. It's okay. You just pay a fine, right? Wells Fargo charged recently $3 billion because they decided to open up accounts for everyone. Everyone that was account holder in Wells Fargo, well, they decided to open up credit card accounts for those people. That's a criminal thing. That's really serious. You can't just open people's accounts without telling them, right? Well, they did that. And they were slapped on the wrist for $3 billion. All these banks have been doing nonstop shenanigans over the last how many decades, right? They all operate like nothing happened, right? So it's just basically a coordinated attack from the banks, again, to deflect all the bad things they have done, right? And now trying to attack the one sector that could really basically upset them, replace them, make them into dinosaurs, right? It makes you wonder what's going on right now, right? So, yeah, I just want to give you guys an insight into what has happened before and what's going on right now. And I do think there's definitely an attack overall, right? While crypto is weak, there are certain individuals and entities behind the scenes that's loading up, stocking up, but causing a whole lot of fear right now, trying to make you stay out of the game. That's exactly what's happening right now. Exactly what's happening. All right, so that's what I want to lead off with, right? Kind of explain the whole situation. Anyways, my thoughts are this. I've said this before about Binance and CZ. Ever since they came out in 2017, right? They grew very fast, but CZ has shown that he's not perfect. He has made some mistakes, especially publicly. But within the last few years, he has really stood out as someone different, a person that looks like he could be trusted versus all the other leaders of a lot of these other projects that really did a lot of shady things and things that were too risky, over leveraged, and it brought their projects to a collapse. And CZ and Binance seems like he's making none of those mistakes, continuing forward, and as the biggest crypto exchange on earth, you're going to get attacked. But here's the thing. A lot of people also recognize, including myself, that Binance has gotten to a point where they are very, 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 very big, extremely big. Without FTX now, their really only competition is Coinbase. If you think about it, there's no one else that's close in their size, right? So I can understand how people are distrusting of them because of that, right? But overall, I think as an exchange, they're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to get collapsed. If anything, if the U.S. Justice Department does charge them for whatever reason, it will most likely be a fine that they could easily pay, and that should be the end of that. But if you are worried about your crypto on Binance, well, it's never too late to put your crypto into a wallet that you control, a self-custody wallet, right? So you don't have to worry about anything happening to Binance or any other exchange out there, right? Never too late to learn how to self-custody your own crypto. All right. With that said, what else is going on? Well, there's a whole lot of things going on this week, okay, for U.S. economy. Right now, the market has opened slightly green, not NASDAQ though, slightly green for Dow and S&P, right? MasterCard is saying that inflation has peaked, but not returning to pre-COVID levels, but inflation has peaked. And that is what everyone is waiting for. Tomorrow, we will get CPI data. It's going to be absolutely huge. It's going to drive the remainder of this week up or down, and maybe driving a lot more than that, depending on how the inflation reads. If it comes in line with expectations, which means that there's a slight rise with core inflation, but overall net inflation goes down. You can see right here, we're at 7.8% overall. It's anticipated it's going to go down to 7.3%. That's a pretty big drop, but core inflation will go up 0.1% from the previous 1.3%. This is year to year. So it's expected that year to year core inflation is still on the rise, but slowing down, now 0.4%. So if we get readings tomorrow where the core inflation comes in line with this 0.4 or even goes lower to 0.3, and the CPI comes in at 7.3 or even lower than that, we will get one of the biggest rallies we have ever seen, because that's going to lead to the next day, which is the FOMC news conference. Powell will come out for certain and say that, well, we have done our job. Inflation is coming down. We're going to be more dovish, and we're going to start decreasing the rate hikes into 2023. It's going to lead to good things. However, if the opposite happens, if these core inflation CPI goes up, well, that can make Powell change his mind and continue to stay hawkish, right? That's not what we want. So I guess tomorrow is going to be a very, very, very important day. Very important day indeed. So let's see what happens tomorrow. Okay. Outside of that, there's other crypto news and Bitcoin news, of course. Hey, supposedly Do Kwon has now moved to Serbia. So you know how Do Kwon brags about how no one's after him and he's not hiding? Well, he certainly is hiding, because authorities are looking for him, and he's moving. Supposedly, he moved from South Korea to Dubai. Dubai said that he's no longer there because even Dubai is looking for him. And then now the latest is he's moved to Serbia. And Do Kwon last month was very cocky on Twitter, saying, hey, I'm not hiding. I'm going to have a hangout, and I invite everyone to join me. I'm going to reveal my location. Yet he has not done any of those things. So Do Kwon is also definitely on the run, even though he has come out, and Three Arrows Capital, everyone coming out, blaming that how his project popped because of FTX and SBF. I have no doubt maybe that was popped by SBF, right? I actually think it's very likely that SBF popped Terra, but overall, Terra Luna, we know. We know now, hindsight in 2020. Back then, I think a lot of us overlooked it, but it was a project that was built in theory, one that had a regular token and an algorithmic stablecoin tied very closely together. And the theory was that it was going to work, but obviously not. Obviously, there's a bank run. There's not enough reserves to cover that and withstand that, and the project went under, right? But throughout all of that, Mr. Do Kwon was very cocky indeed, making bets left and right, attacking people on Twitter, anyone that was criticizing Terra at the time, right? So he gets no love from the community whatsoever. He is still in hiding, so we'll see. Something else that's concerning about algorithmic stablecoins is Tron has one. USDD is a mirror copy of UST, because Justin Sun cannot be trusted, and he has no creativity. All he does is try to copy, and he copied, and that may lead to his downfall, because USDD is an algorithmic stablecoin tied in with several pools and tied in with Tron. Luckily, though, USDD is not, in the billions. It's in hundreds of millions, so should be relatively easy for Justin to kind of stabilize them. But as of right now, they have slipped from the dollar to 97 cents, right? So hopefully, this has happened before, so hopefully they can plug this back and make it whole. But overall, algorithmic stablecoins just really can't be trusted at this point, right? It's good in theory, like what happened to UST is good in theory, but when there's a bank run, it's basically you can't stop it. You can't get it back to its peg. That's the problem. Okay, and as for Bitcoin, despite all the attacks, the media attacks, the bank attacks, whatever attacks that's going on, you know what? Bitcoin holders are unfazed. Number of addresses holding 10 to 1,000. So this is not the small fish, relatively big fish. Okay, having 10 Bitcoins is very, very hard to do, and having 1,000 is near impossible unless you're an institution or exchange. But the number of addresses from 10 to 1,000 has been rising, and bottomed out around February, and since then, massive accumulation. Even though the price has gone down even more since February, but guess what? These big guys, they continue to load up and stock up, even more so recently than before, right? And that's what you're supposed to do. And maybe some of these guys are the ones that's been spreading FUD, trying to deflect, because they're the ones that's buying up, right? So pay attention to what's really happening behind the scenes, right? And of course, we have a lot of bottom indicators like this. This is looking at RSI on a monthly scale. Bitcoin has never been this oversold ever in its history, right? So if you're going by history, you're playing the odds, this is definitely one of those times that you want to be buying in, because we have never, ever been this oversold in Bitcoin's history, going all the way back to the very beginning. So think about that. And of course, we have the next halving event that's coming up. That's not too far off. Right? In a couple months, we're going to be only 1 year away from the next halving event. And take a look what happens leading up to every halving event that we ever had, and what happens after every halving event we ever had, right? Both good. Hint, both good. So there's that. All right, guys. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it. And Lightning Network. Lightning Network to be used between the EU and Africa. Of course, that's good. Strike app, we already have that using Lightning Network. We have Cash App now that's also using Lightning Network, right? Lightning Network is growing by leaps and bounds, and overall good for Bitcoin and entire space.